The room fell silent as Melania Trump stepped onto the stage. A thick, expectant hush settled over the audience. Something in her eyes hinted at extraordinary revelations to come. In the next few minutes, Melania would unveil a side of herself few had ever glimpsed. Her childhood struggles, her dreams of a better life, and the unexpected twists that led her to where she stands today. Are you ready to embark on a journey beyond the headlines and discover the woman behind the public persona? Prepare to see Melania Trump in a light that will challenge everything you thought you knew. As the audience settled into their seats, the air crackled with anticipation. Melania Trump stood at the podium, her usual poise tinged with an unfamiliar vulnerability. She took a deep breath, and the room fell silent. What followed was a journey back in time, to a place far removed from the glittering ballrooms and global stages she now frequented. Melania's voice, softened by emotion, painted a picture of Sevnica, the small Slovenian town where she spent her childhood. It was a place caught between fading echoes of communism and the uncertain promise of a new era. The streets, lined with weathered buildings, told stories of a time that still cast long shadows over daily life. For young Melania and her family, the weight of post-communist life was a constant companion. She spoke of evenings spent gathered around a flickering radio, its crackly transmissions offering glimpses of a world beyond. In those moments, huddled close with her parents and sister, Melania's dreams began to take shape. The struggle for basic necessities became a harsh but effective teacher. Melania's eyes glistened as she recounted the ingenuity required to make ends meet, the creative solutions her parents devised to stretch every resource. These early lessons in resilience, she revealed, laid the foundation for her future determination. A wistful smile crossed Melania's face as she spoke of her mother, a pattern maker at a children's clothing factory. Through her mother's skilled hands and discerning eye, Melania first developed her love for fashion and beauty. The audience leaned in, sensing the deep connection between those childhood memories and the polished figure who stood before them. Melania's voice strengthened as she described her father's influence. His entrepreneurial spirit, kindled in the face of a changing economic landscape, ignited a similar flame of ambition in his daughter's heart. She spoke of watching him navigate the uncertainties of a transitioning economy, his perseverance leaving an indelible mark on her own approach to challenges. The former First Lady's description of her school days drew murmurs of surprise from the audience. She painted a picture of strict discipline and propaganda, a system designed to shape young minds in a specific mold. Yet even in this rigid environment, Melania's imagination found ways to soar. She spoke of doodling fashion designs in the margins of her notebooks, of daydreaming about distant cities while reciting required texts. As Melania's story unfolded, the fall of communism emerged as a pivotal moment. The familiar structures that had defined life in Sevnica began to crumble, bringing both hope and uncertainty. She described the mix of excitement and apprehension that filled the air, the sense that everything was changing but no one quite knew what the future held. It was in this atmosphere of transformation that young Melania's dreams began to take concrete shape. The world beyond Slovenia's borders, once a distant fantasy, suddenly seemed within reach. Melania's voice filled with emotion as she revealed how these early experiences forged her determination to succeed, to push beyond the limitations of her circumstances. The audience sat transfixed as Melania's vulnerability shone through. Gone was the carefully cultivated public persona, replaced by a woman sharing the raw truth of her journey. Her voice wavered slightly as she prepared to delve into the next chapter of her story, the moment when dreams of a better life led her to take a leap into the unknown. As Melania's voice steadied, the air in the room shifted. The audience leaned forward, sensing a moment of raw vulnerability. Melania took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on a distant point. "The day I decided to leave Slovenia," she began, her accent more pronounced, "I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Everything I knew was behind me. Ahead, nothing but uncertainty." The night before her departure, Melania's family gathered for dinner. The aroma of her favorite dish filled the air, a bittersweet reminder of home. Her mother's hands trembled as she served, while her father's proud smile couldn't mask the worry in his eyes. After the meal, he pressed a small envelope into her hand, a few precious dollars he'd saved. Her mother whispered a prayer, slipping a delicate silver cross around Melania's neck. Sleep eluded Melania that night. Her mind raced with images of all she might never see again: the view from her bedroom window, the old church in the town square, the comforting scent of her mother's kitchen. The morning arrived with a chill. During the drive to the airport, Melania's little sister clung to her hand, too young to understand why she had to go, but old enough to sense the gravity of the moment. At the gate, surrounded by the bustle of travelers, Melania's family formed a protective circle around her. "As I walked through that gate," Melania said, her hand unconsciously reaching for her throat, "I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. But I also felt a surge of determination. I was going to make this work for all of them." The flight to New York blurred the line between anxiety and excitement. Melania pressed her face against the window as the city's iconic skyline emerged. "It was like nothing I'd ever seen before," she said. "All those lights, those towering buildings, a dizzying promise of possibility." The awe quickly gave way to harsh realities. Melania's first weeks in New York were a cacophony of unfamiliar languages and a pace that left her breathless. "I felt adrift in a sea of people," she admitted. "Everyone seemed to know their path, and there I was, barely able to ask for directions." Loneliness permeated those early days. Melania described nights in her tiny apartment listening to the city's unfamiliar rhythms. "I would call home once a week," she said. "I'd put on a brave voice, but as soon as I hung up, the tears would come." The language barrier proved a formidable challenge. "I thought I knew English when I arrived," Melania said with a rueful smile. "I quickly realized how wrong I was." Simple interactions became frustrating ordeals, leaving her feeling childlike and lost. Yet in these struggles, Melania found unexpected kindness. An elderly neighbor invited her for tea, patiently helping with her English. A deli owner learned a few words of Slovenian to make her feel welcome. "These small acts of kindness," Melania said, her eyes glistening, "were lifelines. They reminded me that even in this vast city, humanity persisted." Pride swelled in Melania's voice as she recounted her first small victory, successfully ordering a meal without pointing at the menu. "In that moment, I felt like I could conquer the world." It was a turning point, the first of many small triumphs that slowly built her confidence. As Melania's story unfolded, the audience found themselves transported. They could almost feel the weight of her suitcase, taste the bitterness of homesickness, and share in the thrill of each small accomplishment. Her journey bridged cultures, overcame fears, and revealed a strength she never knew she possessed. Melania's voice quivered as she recalled a pivotal moment at a modeling audition. The audience leaned in, sensing the weight of her words. She described the bustling waiting room filled with tall, willowy women from around the world. When her name was called, Melania stood tall and strode in with practiced confidence. But a simple mispronunciation sent ripples of laughter through the panel of judges. "I felt my cheeks burn," Melania admitted, her hand unconsciously touching her face. "In that instant, I wanted to disappear." The room held its breath, their own memories of humiliation bubbling to the surface. But like a phoenix rising from ashes, Melania's eyes flashed with renewed purpose. What followed was a testament to her relentless pursuit of mastery. Long nights hunched over textbooks, fingers tracing unfamiliar words until they became second nature. The soft glow of a lamp illuminated her determined face as she practiced pronunciation in front of a mirror. Melania's journey went beyond traditional study. She painted a vivid picture of Central Park conversations, each a tiny victory. "I would approach strangers," she admitted with a small laugh, "probably seeming a bit strange myself." She described marathon sessions of American TV shows, absorbing not just words, but the nuances of social interaction. Her dedication extended to unexpected places, volunteering at a community center, helping elderly residents with crafts. "Their patience with my broken English was a gift," she said softly. As Melania continued, the audience felt the gradual shift in her confidence. Stumbling blocks became stepping stones. Each successful interaction added a brick to the foundation of her new life. "There was a day," Melania said, her eyes distant, "when I realized I had gone hours without translating in my head. I was thinking in English, dreaming in English. It felt like a door had opened in my mind." But her story wasn't just about language. It was about navigating a new culture, finding her place in a world that often seemed bewildering. She spoke of deciphering unspoken social cues, understanding the complex dance of American small talk and humor. "I once showed up to a casual backyard barbecue in a cocktail dress," she admitted with a rueful smile. The audience chuckled, picturing the scene. "Another time I brought an elaborate gift to a potluck, not understanding that I was supposed to bring a dish to share." Melania described how she dissected each faux pas, turning embarrassment into a learning opportunity. Her resilience in the face of these challenges drew murmurs of admiration from the room. As her confidence on stage grew, Mirroring her journey, the audience hummed with energy. Her story of overcoming language and cultural barriers resonated deeply, many seeing reflections of their own struggles in her words. Melania's triumphant expression faded as she stood before the rapt audience. Her voice softened, carrying a hint of vulnerability rarely heard from her before. "I had it all," Melania confessed, her eyes scanning the crowd. "The magazine covers, the runway shows, the invitations. I'd proven I could make it in America." She paused, her gaze dropping. But something was missing, an emptiness I couldn't explain. The audience leaned in, sensing a rare moment of candor. Melania's voice grew stronger as she continued. "I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a crisp autumn day in Central Park. The air was sharp with the scent of fallen leaves, and the city's usual cacophony seemed muted as if holding its breath. She described spotting a small figure on a park bench, a young girl no more than 12, her eyes wide with fear. In that moment, I saw myself," Melania revealed, her voice catching. "The scared, overwhelmed girl I had been when I first arrived in New York." The room grew hushed as Melania recounted approaching the child, a recent immigrant from Honduras. As I sat with her, something profound shifted inside me. I realized my journey wasn't just about personal success. It was about using that success to help others walking the same difficult path. Melania's eyes glistened as she described the overwhelming sense of purpose that washed over her. "For the first time in years, I felt truly alive," she admitted. "I knew I had to do more, be more than just a model or socialite." She shared her first steps into philanthropy, speaking of late nights researching immigrant support organizations and awkward volunteer orientations. "I made plenty of mistakes," she said with a self-deprecating smile. "But I was determined to learn, to make a real impact." Melania's voice took on new intensity as she described a particularly moving encounter. "I'll never forget Maria, a young mother I met at a community center in the Bronx," she said. She had fled an abusive situation, arriving with nothing but her children and fierce determination. The room fell silent as Melania recounted Maria's struggles, the language barrier, the cultural shock, the constant fear of deportation. "As I listened to her story, I felt a powerful connection," Melania said. "I saw in her the same courage that had carried me through my own darkest moments." Melania described working with local organizations to help Maria find stable housing and enroll in English classes. Watching her confidence grow, seeing her children thrive, it was more rewarding than any personal achievement I'd ever experienced, she admitted. As her speech neared its conclusion, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The audience sensed they were witnessing not just a recounting of past events, but the birth of a new mission. Melania's journey from success-driven individual to purpose-driven leader mirrored the aspirations and struggles of so many in the room. Her voice resonated with newfound conviction as she spoke of the fulfillment she'd discovered. Each small act, each life touched, had begun to fill the emptiness inside her. She had found a sense of purpose that no runway show or magazine cover could ever provide. The crackling anticipation in the room gave way to a hushed silence. Melania's eyes, once brimming with tears, now shone with resolve. As she took a deep breath, the audience leaned in, sensing they were about to witness something extraordinary. "My journey," Melania began, her voice steady, "has taught me that our past gives us the power to shape the future." The crowd hung on her every word as she continued. "Growing up with limited resources, I learned to see opportunity where others might see obstacles. Today, that same perspective drives my work in ways I never imagined." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "But there's one moment that truly changed everything," she said softly. "Something I've never shared before." Melania recounted a life-altering visit to a children's hospital. Walking through the corridors, she was transported back to her childhood in Slovenia. "In those brave children and worried parents, I saw reflections of my younger self and my family's struggles," she revealed. "I remembered the nights we went to bed hungry, the winters without proper heating, but I also remembered the small acts of kindness that gave us hope." Her voice grew stronger as she described an encounter with a young girl named Sophia, there for cancer treatment. Despite her pain, her eyes lit up when I entered. We didn't speak the same language, but connected through simple gestures and shared smiles. As I held Sophia's hand, I felt a profound shift inside me. I realized my journey was about using my platform to give voice to the voiceless, to be a beacon of hope for those still finding their way. She spoke passionately about a literacy program she established in immigrant communities, inspired by her own language struggles. "We've created safe spaces where children and parents learn together, breaking down isolation walls. Melania candidly addressed the challenges of maintaining empathy under public scrutiny. There were times when criticism felt overwhelming, she admitted, moments when I questioned if I was making a difference. She shared a difficult period when a charitable initiative was met with skepticism. I felt like that scared young woman stepping off the plane in New York again, she confessed. But I remembered my promise to never let fear be a barrier to helping others. Melania's words painted a picture of an America of opportunity and compassion. This country gave me a chance when I needed it most, she said gratefully. Now it's my turn to pay it forward, to ensure every child has the opportunity to write their own American dream. As she concluded, Melania's tone became reflective. My journey has taught me that true strength lies in rising every time we fall. It's about turning our struggles into stepping stones, our pain into purpose. She leaned forward, her gaze intense. To anyone feeling lost or uncertain, know this: your story matters, your voice matters, and you have the power to turn your challenges into a force for good. The silence that had fallen over the room during Melania's speech now crackled with electric anticipation. Her eyes, filled with a fire that seemed to burn from within, swept across the audience. In that moment, it was clear to everyone present that this was a call to arms, a challenge to the very core of how they lived their lives. Melania's voice, strong and unwavering, filled the room. We stand at a crossroads, she began, her accent adding authenticity to her words. Imagine standing at a fork in a vast, uncharted road. One path leads to division and fear, the other to understanding and unity. The choice is ours. She paused, letting her words sink in. The audience leaned forward, hanging on every syllable. This isn't about grand gestures or policy changes, Melania continued. It's about the small moments that make up our lives. The cashier struggling to understand your order. The new family next door, looking lost and alone. The child on the playground who doesn't quite fit in. Her voice softened, becoming almost conspiratorial. What if we offered understanding instead of judgment? What if we truly listened, seeing the person behind the label? Melania's eyes seemed to lock with each person in the room as she spoke. I stand before you today as an immigrant who once felt lost and alone in a new country, and I pledge to you, I will use every platform I have to amplify the voices of those who feel voiceless. The room grew still, the weight of her words settling over the audience. But I can't do it alone, Melania continued, her voice rising with passion. This is about all of us. It's about the society we want to build, the legacy we want to leave. She stepped closer to the edge of the stage. Reflect on your own journey. What obstacles have you overcome? What kindnesses have made a difference? How can you pay that forward? Melania painted a vivid picture of a society built on empathy and understanding. She spoke of welcoming neighborhoods, schools where every child felt valued, and workplaces that celebrated diversity. I know it's not easy, she acknowledged, her voice softening. It's often simpler to retreat into our own bubbles, but that path leads to division and fear. The audience nodded, some wiping away tears as her words struck a chord deep within them. She was challenging them to change their daily lives. Start small, Melania urged, her voice warm and encouraging. Strike up a conversation with a stranger, volunteer at a community center, invite that new family over for dinner. A simple act can spark a revolution. It begins with you. She shared a vision of an America where every immigrant child felt as welcome as she eventually did, where the American dream was a tangible reality for all. Imagine a country, Melania said, her voice filled with wonder, where our differences are celebrated, not feared, where our varied backgrounds are strengths, not weaknesses. As her speech drew to a close, Melania's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I remember my first day in America, clutching my suitcase, heart pounding with fear and hope. A stranger smiled at me, offered directions, and suddenly, I felt less alone. That small act of kindness changed everything for me. Today, I challenge you to be that stranger for someone else. The energy in the room was palpable, crackling with the potential for positive change. Each person present realized they had the power to make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. As Melania's words faded, a profound silence enveloped the room. Her journey from a small Slovenian town to the world stage had become a testament to human resilience. The polished facade gave way, revealing a woman of depth and compassion. Her tale challenged everyone to look beyond the surface, seeking understanding in unlikely places. Melania's story became a catalyst, inspiring each person to consider how their experiences could create positive change. She had given them a gift, the courage to embrace their own journeys, and the hope that even small acts of kindness could ripple outward. As the crowd stirred, a question lingered. What if your story could change the world?